The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, everybody. This is Krishna Vedula here, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. So it's really exciting to see a whole bunch of you already again this morning. And we have another really fantastic webinar for you from Quanser. And you know what Quanser stands for? Question and answer. Okay, so that's what the company is named after. So you got questions, we got the answers. So this webinar is a part of a series of webinars that our collaboration with IFES and GEDC and IUCE to strengthen the community of online engineering education to address the challenges that we're facing today. So I'm really excited to have introduced to you the CEO of Quanser, Paul Gilbert. Come in, Paul. If you want to share your screen, you're welcome to do that and introduce your team for us.
Let me just find out how do I share my screen.
I'm
sorry, everybody.
Under the microphone, there's a little icon.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. From again, as Krishna said, thank you very much for joining from wherever you are in the world. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd really like to thank both Krishna and Hans Hoya from the IFES for giving us this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm not going to talk for very long, but I just wanted to let everybody know that we're thinking about people around the world. My whole team is working from home. When I say working from home, my engineering team has been working flat out for the last 3 or 4 weeks to develop further our online offering, which we're going to be presenting to you today. Obviously, when things happened a few weeks ago, we realized we had to shut down. Universities were shut, and there was a call for ways in which we can improve or enhance the ability for people to teach from a distance, especially in the lab environment. So we are very, very happy, very proud to be able to share our developments with you today. So the two people who are going to be talking are going to be, first of all, Peter Martin. He's the R&D manager for our applications, all the ways in which we can actually enhance our solutions. Peter has led this team and has not had a lot of sleep over the last few weeks, and I really wanted to thank him on the airways here for being so dedicated to this cause. And there's an army of people, a small army of people behind him working on this. And also today will be the R&D manager, Paul Karam. He will be joining later on to do some of the demonstrations, I believe. So with that, thank you once again for joining, and I'd like to hand over to Peter Martin.
Peter, you can show your face for a few seconds if you want.
Oh boy.
That's up to yourself.
As Paul Gilbert said, I haven't slept in a
There's
little
Peter.
while.
Look at this handsome guy. All right, here we go. Okay, so go ahead. I'm going to turn myself off, and you're on. And
all right, perfect. Well, as Krishna said, hello wherever you are in the world and whatever time of day it is. Sincerely hoping everybody is healthy and managing in these difficult times. As Paul Gilbert said, we're all at home, which brings its own challenges. I have 2 little ones that like to sit in my lap when I work, which makes things interesting, but also kind of a little bit nicer than the office. But that being said, we can get right into it. So what we're going to talk about today is a product that we conceived in terms of what we would create for this community about 2.5 weeks ago. That being said, as I'll get into a little bit later, this is built on a platform that we've been working on various aspects of for about 7 years now. So the technology is very well established. It's been proven, and you may even have heard about it in a number of our presentations or conferences in the past. But due to the circumstances around the world at this time, we decided to rapidly accelerate the pace of creating a solution to address the needs that we see now in the community for solutions to having students experience hardware, which is what we've done for 30 years outside of campus. And so as you can see from the title screen here, what we've created, we believe, is our world-renowned Quanser hardware for controls and robotics, but now on your desktop and in your pocket. So we like to begin every presentation the same way, which is to, come on, there we go. Which is to talk about, again, as Krishna said, the fact that what we come from, what our DNA is based on, is question and answer. So we've been in academia for over 30 years, innovative products to bring hardware experiences to students, whether it's in research or in teaching, in the laboratory, in the lecture hall, on mobile, whatever the platform. We've endeavored for over 30 years to bring our hardware experiences to students and give them interactive, really visceral understanding of how hardware and how the experience of doing engineering really gives them the skills they need to be able to succeed later on in their careers and in their academic careers as well. So you can see here the first product that our founder Jacob created 31 years ago in his university in British Columbia, and going from that over the decades to one of our most complicated systems now, the flying drone system we have here on the right. And then also now this year with our launch of the self-driving vehicle platform. It's been a long journey through various aspects of technology. And one thing I'll also touch on, which we've done over the years and also are continuing to do with this product I'll talk about today, is to create systems that take cutting edge technology and really integrate them into solutions that are academically appropriate. So taking whatever it is that industry is pushing or that even students are pushing as the next shining light of technology and innovation, and trying to adapt that to the academic field to allow educators to give students the skills they need to use those technologies. So as I said, many years in academia, we're now closing in on, I think, probably at least 3,000 academic institutions that use our systems around the world. And on our website, we have thousands and thousands of academic papers in research that we've qualified and gathered up that you can search and look through to see how our solutions have addressed your particular fields of interest. But that being said, there are many more out there. These are just the ones that have come across our desktops. And 80 plus core products and solutions. So what we're going to show today is just a little snippet of some of the solutions that we offer, and some representations, let's say, of the solutions that we offer. But we offer, beyond that, a wide range of products, not just in controls and robotics, which is what we're talking about today, but also in structural health and other types of systems that run the gamut of engineering. And with that, we'll get right into the final sort of introduction to what we do as a company, which is the Quanser approach. So these are sort of the tenets of what we try to offer with any product, whether it's this type of innovative platform or even just our day-to-day hardware offerings. We try to make our hardware platforms robust and expandable. Again, I'll say that applies to software and to the solutions that you'll see here, whether it's virtual or real hardware, it's still expandable and it's still robust and open and transparent. There's nothing hidden away in everything that we do. We always try to expose the underlying aspects of what goes on in engineering systems, especially complex systems, so that students can see the inner workings of what happens with systems that are typically closed off or hidden away from them. But at the same time, we try to not necessarily iron out the kinks that they might run into, but at least give them methods to quickly surpass some of the obstacles they might see in traditional approaches to, for instance, design or integration, so that they can really focus on the core outcomes and focus on the skills that they want and not have to worry about hardware integration or worry about building up fundamental software modules and things like that. Everything is sort of available, but they can still see what's going on. We have fully documented experiences. That's what I've been working on for over 10 years, are creating curriculum materials and teaching resources for educators to use our systems for teaching as well as in their research activities. Everything from resources like curriculum to teaching guides to ABET alignment guides, through to some of the innovations we've had recently with mobile content and even textbook resources, which I'll touch on in a couple of minutes. But at the same time, making sure that everything we do whether it's high-end complex systems right down to something as simple as a servo motor, making sure it's academically aligned to courses and to research. And also, one thing I'll mention because of what I do at the company is to make sure that it's academically aligned over time, which you all know is a moving target. Academically aligned might be great 15 years ago, but times change. And if it's going to really be aligned to the current methods of teaching and the current cutting edge in modern pedagogy, we have to also align and move what we do in terms of our academic offerings to make sure that it remains something that's useful, both to educators and to students. And then finally highlighting, as I said, the modern techniques of design, rapid controls, prototyping, and any other emerging technologies to make sure that it's not just aligned pedagogically, but it's also aligned in terms of the topic areas that we cover. One last thing that we'll touch on, obviously the aspects of research. Research is where we started. Everything that we do starts with our own internal R&D research. That's why we call our team the R&D team, because before we can present something that I said is academically appropriate and is ready to be used as a teaching tool, we have to do a lot of research to make sure that we understand it and we can create something that's robust, that's reliable, that has the capabilities that are needed. And then at the same time, offer that flexibility so that all sorts of different institutions, these are just some examples of some of the institutions we've partnered with over the years to create, showcase really academically progressive solutions to really address some of the growing needs in the academic field. That doesn't come without a lot of R&D and a lot of research into exactly how we can address not just the technology, but also the needs of the students and the academic community. And then what I'll do now is very gracefully pivot to the our legacy in distance education, which is the topic of the day, and obviously the topic of the day for a lot of different groups and different organizations around the world. So this is an example of the kind of technology we've been working on for several years. As you can see here, this is a laboratory experience that students could have where they not just see a video of our systems, but this is completely an open environment where students can roam around and see things. We've used this technology over the years to do things like this, demonstrations to show how our systems can be used in different ambitious ways. But this more or less was basically the furthest that we had taken this platform. So this was basically what we were offering in terms of being able to leverage this internal technology, being able to do virtual reality as well as augmented reality and mixed reality to be able to showcase our systems, but we'd never actually created solutions based around this. And so that was one of the technologies that we pulled on for this solution that I'll be introducing in a couple of minutes. The other solution we pulled on was this platform QDEX, which you obviously may have heard of, that we've been working on for 6 or 7 years now. And what this did was take the curriculum side of the equation of having really interactive, engaging curriculum for students on mobile devices where they live and breathe. That's where students consume content nowadays. And this was a platform that we really believed was robust and also was intuitive for students to be able to take complex engineering topics and really engage with them and understand the complexities of them in a very intuitive way on their mobile devices wherever they are, whether it's on the metro or on a plane or walking to class or in class. It really gave them these types of experiences. And so the question we had was, how do we take those two platforms and create a solution that can really do what we've always done with our systems in this sort of like cutting edge content delivery mechanism, which is bridge the gap between theory and practice. So how do we get the theory, because we don't want to iron over the theory or remove it from the equation, but we also have to show applications. That's something that my team is very passionate about. Is every one of our curriculum topics always starts with a motivation section to really engage with students and show them what the point of these concepts are, why we're teaching these, why these are important for them to know in the future. So bridging that gap in a really engaging way so that they can really see the reflection of the theory and the application. The last little piece of the equation that we did last year, which you also may have come across, was experience controls, which was our mobile textbook that we developed. Experience controls was based on our attempt to address what we saw as being an aspect of a controls course that was most in need of enlivenment, most in need of a refresh, which was the textbook. So we took the classic controls textbook topics and we tried to build something that would give students exactly those experiences I was just talking about, but with traditional textbook content. It addressed all the classic curriculum topics, and we provided it absolutely free on both iOS and Android, as well as full instructor resources and interactive simulations and everything that students would really expect nowadays out of a textbook, out of a real textbook. And beyond that, what we tried to do with that platform, which has been very successful, I think at the moment we're well over 4,000 student downloads just in the last 8 months, I believe, and 200 or 300 instructor resource downloads. So we showed with that there was a need for this type of technology and for this type of experience for students to be able to engage with these complex topics. And above all of that, so that's the foundation, the layer on top, as I touched on at the beginning of this presentation, was that ultimately what we always promise our customers is that we will stand by them and we'll drive them towards success. So that was the trigger, as I started with, like that was the impetus for us to take on this challenge of taking those desperate technology foundations, these ideas and concepts that we'd shown with experience controls, our legacy in research and teaching, and bring all of that together faster than we've ever created a product before to do something to allow our customers to succeed. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. With that, I'll just quickly touch on what Paul Gilbert mentioned, which is that this has been a hyper rapid prototyping experience, let's call it. We've gone, like I said, from an idea to something that we're hopefully going to be launching. I believe we're going to be launching this afternoon, extremely quickly. Lots of very long hours, but we're very happy and very excited about what we've created and where this platform will grow and scale to in the future. So with that, interactive labs is what we've created. It's as I said, rich interactive experiences for the lecturer in the lab. So the same thing we've always done as a company. Lab activities that are accessible off campus that integrate directly into online lectures, which is what a lot of universities are now taking on, and can potentially bring even more interaction and engagement to course material than you may even have had on campus. It's a turnkey cross-platform solution. That was something we really believed was important, to have something that was extremely easy to integrate and to use now, with universities potentially even being closed and with a lot of support mechanisms no longer available to instructors. This platform is completely turnkey. So all the content is created. It works on Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and Android, so all completely cross-platform. There's no infrastructure needed at the university. There's no setup required or registration processes or anything. It's just essentially available as soon as you download it. And we hope that really makes it easy to integrate into existing controls courses or existing robotics courses without any necessary oversight from, as I said, those support and resources that may or may not be available at this time. And also it's scalable. The reason that we created something, which you'll see in a second, as being a virtual solution as opposed to what you would typically probably look for or expect in terms of remote access, is again, it doesn't have, first of all, that reliance on someone to configure a system to allow for remote access. And I gave a webinar for Quanser that I'd be happy for you to take a look at on the Quanser website a couple of weeks ago on remote labs and some of the challenges but opportunities there. What this does is basically give them a very equivalent experience to remote access, maybe even a more engaging experience to remote access, but without any of the configuration or setup. And it's completely scalable in that it can be deployed to hundreds of students without any need to scale infrastructure in order to allow that to take place in a really elegant way. This is the first time anyone will have seen what it looks like as an experience. You can see this was one of these was recorded at 11 o'clock last night when my phone was almost dead. So on the right-hand side here, you can see this is the Windows and Mac OS experience. It's a completely virtual representation of our CubeServo 2. You can see the response of the system is very accurate to what the response to the system would be as an actual piece of hardware. One of the things that comes from that legacy of R&D that I talked about is that we understand our systems very intimately, and we're very able to create representations of our systems that are completely accurate to how they behave in the real world. So we have everything from simulated encoders producing simulated encoder noise and being able to quantize them and show the effects of those and how filtering can be applied to them. And then also just at the very high level, which is what students really worry about, give them the ability to just interact with their controllers, tune their gains, interact with the system, see what the effects are of the different parameters that they're playing with. As you can see, change filter frequency, see how that introduces lag, introduces other aspects of, again, interacting with actual hardware. How does hardware affect the theory that they would have already understood in their lectures or their online resources? And then on the mobile side, giving that same parity experience of presenting content, presenting the same type of content we've done in experience controls, we've done for years with our own curriculum, assessment questions to check their understanding, make sure that they know they're following along and they're understanding the concepts, assessment tools, which we hope will later be integrated into a built-in mechanism for creating lab reports. At the moment, they can just basically answer the questions, we provide the solutions to you. But again, interacting with these models of our hardware to really understand on their phone without any other need for any kind of connectivity or any kind of infrastructure exactly how these systems work, and trying to give as close as possible an experience that's the same on iOS, on Android, on Windows, and on the actual hardware. So they can be confident that what they're learning, these concepts are how the actual concepts would be manifest in actual systems in the real world. The topics that we cover at the moment will be on our CubeServo2, our servo motor modeling, so experimental modeling in terms of doing experimental testing to find model parameters and comparing those to theoretical first principles models to really show the difference between having a first principles model and having an actual physical system, and how the effects of physical systems change how actual systems behave. Introducing position control. And there we start to touch on some of the same aspects as modeling, but more really showing them that if you create control gains based on theoretical models and apply them to systems, there's a difference. Those controllers are not going to work perfectly or have exactly the intended behavior on an actual system, and how you can compensate for that and how you can tune your parameters from there and things like that. That's one of the biggest revelations that I've seen out of students when I've been teaching at different universities over the years, is that realization that if you take a first principles theoretical model and create a controller around it and then apply it to real hardware, it's not going to behave the way you think. And so we really wanted to make sure we included that in this type of experience. And then a speed control lab, which touches on some other aspects of how control affects hardware in terms of how you measure speed and how speed introduces noise into your controller and you have to compensate for that and things of that nature. And then we also have a selection of aerospace control labs based on our Quanser Aero that cover topics like PID tuning. Again, we go back to tuning aspects, dealing more sort of with creating a PID controller, but also understanding the process of how you do qualitative PID control, what the parameters do, things like that. So not necessarily as quite an emphasis on hardware as we have with the servo motor, more an emphasis on the act of creating control and how the parameters affect the system. That's in that case slightly more complex than the servo motor is. And then we immediately pivot to something that's very focused on aerospace in terms of gain scheduling and how that's used in aerospace and how it can be used on a very simple aerospace style system. And then finally, we get into PID versus state space control in terms of typically with a system like a coupled dynamic helicopter system like the Aero, we would expect students to go down the route of doing something complex like an optimal state space controller. But it's sort of difficult typically for us to illustrate and to have students understand why, and in terms of they'll understand the process of creating a system like that, but not necessarily when they would use it or why. And so we wanted to really introduce something to show how that sort of process is much faster and much more efficient to create a really solid and really robust control system, as opposed to the approach they would have done in the earlier lab on PID tuning. So we're really circling back around to PID tuning to really show that that worked on a very simple system. Now your system has become much more complex. observe and understand that that isn't going to work anymore. You need another solution, and that's where something like advanced control topics steps in to really take over and allow you to create a controller for that kind of system. And then finally, as I said, we have instructor resources. They probably won't be available today, but we'll be launching them in the next few days with full solutions to our assessment questions, an implementation guide just to show some examples of how you can use this system. Obviously, the system is great for traditional laboratory style scenarios, but we've talked a lot about how this type of system would be great for interactive demonstration in online lectures. So like this might be the first time that it's really easy and possible to bring interactive and engaging instructor demonstrations in terms of working with hardware and showing concepts in a lecture scenario. Even getting into more ambitious scenarios like studio learning or possibly even down the road project-based learning and things like that remotely, which are going to be their own challenge. But this type of platform might be able to bring a solution to that. And then as part of that, I think probably we'll move towards having lecture slides available as well. We did the same thing with experience controls, and I think it really brings a nice solution to be able to offer something that's aligned in terms of the different concepts that are presented in different ways. But this brings us to a question, which is, oh, I put 2 slides in. It was late at night. What's next? So we're going to be releasing the CubeServo 2 and the Aero, hopefully today, by tomorrow at least. But then from there, we'd like to add some more hardware solutions. But we'd like to hear from the community as to what you'd like us to prioritize, what you're hungry for in terms of needing something to show your students. So the one thing we've been talking about is the pendulum experiment. So being able to do modeling of a gantry experiment and able to show how something a little bit more complex like a Futura pendulum you can model in the same type of way as the servo, but then very quickly take that nonlinear model and apply it to being able to do balance control and things like that. You can see here we've made a start on that, but for us it's sort of like making sure that we prioritize to get solutions out as soon as possible that can address the needs that you guys are seeing. And the other side of that is my personal baby, the Quanser ARM, which no one has seen before because it isn't launched yet, but is the project that I'm also managing as well as this. And we've created an introduction to the Quanser ARM to show how that system will behave when it's released later this year, and some of the applications that you can do with that in terms of the same types of topics for joint control and task-based control and how those approaches affect something like a manipulator system, but then also getting into aspects of path planning and some of the more traditional manipulator robotics concepts. And so that will be an interesting showcase of how controls is applied to other types of systems. But neither of these are far enough along that we can't prioritize them. If you or your colleagues have something that you'd like to let us know is a priority for you, I'm not sure if that would be a follow-up mechanism here, but I'm sure you can find us, whether it's on Twitter or LinkedIn or somewhere else, and let us know what you'd like to see. And I think probably finally one of the things I want to touch on is why. Why did we create these Quanser interactive labs? As you've heard, like we really wanted to provide the overwhelming requests that we've seen. All of our inboxes are full. Our phones have been ringing. There's no one at the office, but the phones are ringing with a lot of interest, a lot of our partners looking for a solution. And so we wanted to create something that could be implemented today that's scalable to whatever class size is necessary. And to do that, we created a solution that we could create ourselves, but really offer the same types of experiences, the same type of legacy we brought to all of our products over the last 30 years. And also leverage what we do, like our content delivery, our simulation platforms, our virtualization platforms, things that we haven't really showcased before, but have been working on for years to really meet not just the current need, but also the needs that may come in the next few months and years. And we really believe that this platform will be one that will allow us to create solutions in the future that can address the needs that are coming, not even the needs now, but the needs that we may see 6 or 8 months or even years from now. So this platform, in other words, is not going away. This isn't a short-term thing that we've created just to address the current need. This will be a legacy for us, and that's something that we'll build on in the next years to come. With that, I think I'd just like to show you some of the experiences that we've built over the last few days. So I'm going to switch to my phone, and I'll show a little bit of the actual application platform, and then I'll pass it along to our director of R&D, Paul Karam, and he'll show a little bit of the Windows experience. So I'm just going to switch out of the slides to my phone. I hope you can all see my phone with, as I said, my lovely little distractions. So this is another way for me, obviously, to showcase our QDex platform, which we've leveraged to create all this material extremely quickly. You can imagine creating what is essentially 12 mobile apps in the space of 2.5 weeks is a pretty ambitious challenge, and we could not have done it without our QDex platform. So if you're interested in the QDex platform, we'd love to hear from you. It's a platform we've designed to create these online mobile experiences for the last several years, but we think it also has a lot of potential to be able to address a lot of the challenges in this time. But here you can see some of the experiences that are, I would say in quotations, ready to go. We'll be doing some more final tuning today and pulling them all together and ironing out some of the kinks and then releasing it. And we'll have a cadence of release so that, as I said, not necessarily just the hardware that we'd like to address in the future and some of the more up and coming topics that we'd like to introduce, but also we'll be doing not just content releases, but also bug fixes and refinements over the next few days and weeks. So if you do download this today or tomorrow when it's available, I'd actually, with that, encourage you, please don't download it right now. It is released right now, but we'd rather people don't actually use it at the moment because the content is not in it yet. We have a system to push content when it's complete that is still pending, but for complex mobile app store reasons, and they're just as backed up as everyone else. You may see it right now, but it won't be launched until later today or tomorrow. But we'll be making updates obviously over the next few days. So stay tuned and look for that. And also on our website, Quantum.com, we'll have a banner and a redirection to where you can download the Windows versions and the macOS versions. So everything will be complete and ready, but not right this second, please. This is still a little sneak peek of something that's coming, as I said in the introduction and the title of this today, but not exactly right now. We're doing our best to get it out as soon as we can. But with that, I'll show some of the experiences. So you would have seen from the video position control, but now I can show you a little bit more in terms of, like, as I said, we start with motivation always, and then we get into some of the key concepts, just show students an overview of how they can interact and how some of the theory behind what they're going to see. This is meant to go alongside something like experience controls in terms of content level. So it's not very deep. It just sort of does an overview of the concepts that are important to the laboratory exercise, but we intended to sit alongside a traditional resource, whether it's a textbook or something else that they would use in conjunction with this. You can see here, as I said, the assessment questions to check their understanding and see if they understand the answers, and not just that, but understand what they're supposed to be experiencing. And then we get right into the simulation where they can interact with the system, they can tune their parameters, they can see how their parameters affect the actual response of the system, they can zoom in and inspect their responses to get parameters like overshoot and settling time and things like that. And then from there to something a little bit more complex, like I said, in terms of the PID versus state space. You can see here we've sort of bundled up some of the questions to make it a little bit easier for them to consume the content, but being able to see how difficult it is to tune your parameters in a complex coupled system like this, to show how it can respond accurately, but then essentially just flip a switch to something that was designed using a optimal control process and see how nice it is to be able to have that kind of tuned response. As I said, just play with the systems, just get a feel for them, understand how they work, and understand some of the complexity of them and things like that. This may or may not be available today, but I just wanted to show you a little bit of how this experience will look as well in terms of the ARM and how that sort of interaction will be possible. And with that, I think before we close out, I'll pivot to Paul Karam, who will showcase the Windows experience for you, so you can get a feel for how that experience will also work. I'll just make him presenter,
Okay,
and we'll go ahead with that.
I'll make him the
Okay.
presenter. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Just, Paul, I'm making you the presenter. Click show my screen. Paul.
Excellent. All right. Hi, everyone, and thank you again for joining us. And my name is Paul Karam. I hope you can all see my screen now. You should be seeing
Yes.
two of our products in there as well. And just echoing what everyone's already said, and thank Peter and his team a lot. They've put in many long hours and sleepless nights in the last little while, because, like we said right off the bat, we've been in this business for 30 years, and we work with many of you for a very long time. And because of where the world is today, all of you are on a need to pivot, to deliver, enriched engineering concepts to your students, but they can't come into the lab. And that's really where we've always shined, is how to work with you to make that lab experience as phenomenal as possible. And that's where we got together. And although we've had software assets over the years, like Peter has mentioned and shown, we were always looking at the hardware. We truly believe that hands-on hardware experiences is a big part of any engineering experience. Having said that, the world is not where it was just a few months ago, and so a lot of our software and approach to our hardware can be leveraged in this experience. So what I'm showing you right now is an extension of what Peter showed you, and what we did was quickly look at how we can replicate or leverage our hardware experiences, but deliver them virtually, deliver them in a scalable way that tomorrow, the day after, you can send all your students to download an app on their mobile device, to download an application on their Windows or Mac PC, and they can continue, and you can continue to deliver that, quote unquote, hands-on interactive lab experience as seamless as possible. So that was a big part of what we're trying to do, is to make this part of your criteria right now as easy as possible. We know it's a struggle to go online, to deliver lectures remotely. We want to work with you to have at least that lab experience be as seamless as we can make it right now. So just to show you what that experience is going to look like, we're going to have multiple Quanser products represented here. So what we did was take the typical lab experience. For example, an introductory to controls class, you would do things like modeling, and then get into more complicated concepts like how do you control the position of a servo motor, how do you control the speed of a servo motor. So the students here can load up an example, and then you can pan and zoom around the actual product to see what it's doing, and then you can actually, for example, here you want to see what is the model of the system. So the blue represents what the actual system has done. So this is representative, like Peter said, high fidelity model of the actual hardware. And part of this exercise, and there's a lot of lab exercises that go along with this, is to find the right gain and time constant that matches, based on many modeling techniques, matches the system as closely as possible. So right there, I came fairly close. So that's really good. So let me go. So that's the modeling lab, and then you can go into some more in-depth ones. So a classic exercise is position control, where you can actually go ahead, and if you want to look at it, so you can see the plot is mimicking the interaction really well. So there's some ringing as it gets there, it does get there and settles to where you want. But this is the exact same experience you have if you had this servo motor from Quanser right on your desk. I can simply change the gain, a bit more derivative, and it's getting very, very well tuned. So slow down a bit, but no overshoot, no ringing, and going exactly where we are. And these are just typical exercises that we would have with our equipment in the lab. We're trying to take those and piecemeal them in a way that they're a lot more accessible in this new approach of digital and all online. And the scalability is definitely there. It's a simple app. You download it from our store. This is the Windows experience. And like Peter was showing you, we have an iOS and Android experience that you can get as well from the app stores. We will be following very closely with the Mac experience as well. So doing as much as we can to allow you to deliver this to a wide variety of students. And then finally, I will show you the aerospace experiment. So this is where you get a bit more involved in terms of the dynamics of the system. So the benefits of this system is that it it mimics, in this configuration at least, it mimics half a quad rotor, which we also have experience with. So you can do a lot of interesting things. You can see it's actually a sluggish motion right now. So I can change its performance, change the gains, and you can see it improves. And this is a great way to show what happens with integral gain. If I want something to settle or get to where I want to really quickly, increasing integral gain allows me to get to where I want to go in the face of disturbances like gravity, which we've modeled here as well. And so these are just very quick exercises that you can walk through, and a lot of the material that you're going to be given in the lab are now translatable to this experience to get some interactions with quote unquote physical systems. And that's really what we're trying to do, is provide that typical Quantser experience, but allow you to deliver it virtually and online. All right, and with that, I'll hand back over to Peter to close up his presentation.
Peter, I'll give you back the screen in just a second. And just for those of you, there are more than 350 people here, just send the questions in. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Okay. So I only have one more thing to note before we wrap this up, which is just essentially, again, touching back on what we do as a company, and as Paul Karam said, why we've taken on this challenge. This has always been sort of our legacy, as our we don't necessarily call the institutions and the some of you as well, and also the professors and educators we work with, our customers. They're our partners, and they view us as colleagues, not necessarily directly as vendors. And that's, again, part of our motivation to bring solutions like this and to work as hard as we are on these types of challenges. Is like we viscerally hear from all of you that you have problems, and we know that we have technology that we can use to solve them. And so that's why we're doing this, and why we do these sorts of ambitious projects, is because we want to be able to help, and we want to be able to work with you to make sure that the solutions that we provide are the ones that will work for you, and the ones that will work for your students. And again, finishing off where we started, that's where we come from as a company.
Okay, could you put up something with your email ID on, so that people can contact somebody when they have any more questions, because we will have a lot of people interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, with the rapidity of creating this, we don't necessarily have that available right now. If I will pull it up something really quickly, which is the website that we have available for it, okay. Which is, if you go to, I'll just bring it up here. Again, with how quickly we've been pulling this together, I'm not entirely sure if it is available. No, there we go. Okay.
Okay, while waiting for that, we'll go to Hans. Come in, Hans.
This is Hans on behalf of the IFES, GDC, and IUCE community. I really want to thank you, Peter and Paul, for your very thoughtful presentation here. In a sense, what you're stressing, and I've seen this in the years and the close partnership that we've had, is the seriousness of your professionalism. When you make promises, you fulfill them in a very serious way as genuine partners. So I'm very impressed, and thank you very much for this presentation here. I look forward also for us to continue our discussion in terms of, for example, the potentials of online partnerships, particularly internships for our students. And without going further on this, thank you again all.
Okay, great. I'll go to Ramiro here. Ramiro, come in. We also have Dr. Jangir Zhu here from SUSTech. We'll give him a chance to say a few words about what he thinks about this in just a minute. Okay, Ramiro, go ahead.
Thank you, Quantser team. I mean, you're a great partner, and we thank you for your support. And we look forward to continue this great collaboration with you guys. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Zengezu, would you like to say anything? Any comments from you? I've unmuted you.
I think this is very exciting to be able to run the control concept through the device on the mobile device or computer without really buy the device. Only thing, I'm not a control expert, and for me to really learn through this so-called the virtual lab, really the control box, server 2, almost to me is a black box. So you need to somehow unveil your box so that how do you implement the control theory into the box, and then tell people I want to control the position to 45 degrees. There is some disturbance. For example, if I have some wind comes, you create a random force to force the position deviate, then see how the control system respond by you change the parameters in the PID, and this maybe will be more more interactive. This is just my 2 cents, but it's exciting.
Your comments, Peter, on what Jangir said?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we tried to do with this platform. You're absolutely right. Like what we always stand by, and I mean, as our you can see from the legacy of our company, we believe in our heart of engineering hearts that the experience in any virtual environment will never be the same as it is on actual hardware. That's how we built our company and how we built our legacy. And so it's never going to be perfectly accurate, which is obviously we hope for that, but we try to really make it, like I said earlier, academically appropriate. So it showcases the nuance of hardware, and it also allows students to see and understand the core concepts and core outcomes of the curriculum. But yeah, it's never going to be a perfect match, because if it's a perfect match, then it's increasingly complex and increasingly scalable in terms of complexity.
Okay.
I don't know if Paul Karam, you have something another thought on that, but.
Yeah, so it's a great observation. Like Peter was saying, we are looking for other ways, and our DNA is that hands-on. There's nothing better than actually having a control system and you're able to distribute yourself. So disturbance rejection is a great topic and robustness in many control theory courses. And so as we evolve this platform and these delivery mechanisms, we are looking for ways to bring as much quote unquote hands-on as we possibly can, knowing full well that these are virtual and remote experiences and online experiences. So it's a great point, and we're looking for ways to add that disturbance, be it virtually as well.
Thanks. Quick comment from Alfred Nagovi from South Africa. I don't know if he's able to unmute himself, but I just wanted to read out his comments because he's talking about a very important issue that we will continue to face in the next few years, is that the practical ways of reaching disadvantaged students who do not have access to digital platforms, and since we're digital inequity among students, different places within each country and around the world. Anybody have any thoughts on that more broader aspect? That's Alfred. Anyway, so we leave it at that, and I'll go on to the more specific questions. I'll let you all reflect on that particular thing. Now, the other specific question from him is: are tools specific for graduate student and for researchers, or undergraduate students?
So this particular platform has been tuned to an undergraduate student experience. We are working on solutions, hopefully for later this year, that will provide a similar experience, but one to the earlier comment about it being a black box, a more open and more scalable and customizable solution to allow potentially things like remote or virtual research to occur as well. What we're trying to do is basically address all of the needs and all of the typical use cases that students and researchers and everyone in the academic community will have in the laboratory with our hardware. So this is the beginning in terms of addressing the more sort of like day-to-day and common aspects of how students interact with hardware in an undergraduate course experience. But then we're working on providing more advanced and more complex and open solutions later this year that will allow something like research to still occur. One other thing I'll mention, given your comment on the availability of digital resources and things like that, we have worked with the mobile platform, the QDEX platform, a fair bit in other regions, especially with Purdue University in Kenya, to bring engineering resources on that platform to them as well. So that is a challenge that I can really relate to, and it's one where there are lots of problems, but also hopefully, especially over time as technology becomes more accessible in terms of price point, hopefully ones where solutions do appear, and where our hope is that with providing mobile resources, where mobile resources are increasingly accessible, that will open up the potential for students in those types of regions to have experiences like this more than it would on traditional platforms.
Okay, related question from Jen Sate. Does this system need a stable internet, or could it work with 3G or 4G signal?
So at the moment, this system does not require any connectivity to the internet once you've opened the system. So when you open the mobile system will check to see if content is available from our servers. So that's why I was saying that it's a little bit critical that you guys wait a little while to install and play with the mobile apps, because the content is not on our servers yet. So when it opens, there's placeholder content there that isn't the actual content that we need to be able to post it. But later today or tomorrow, the actual content will appear. And at that point, when you open the application, it'll download it and it'll all be available to you. But once it's available, you don't need a connection from then on. You can use it completely offline without any internet connection whatsoever. And the same on the Windows side. The Windows side will allow you to also use all of the systems without any internet connection at all. Later on this year, you might be able to, we might change the mechanism somewhat to allow people to log into accounts and to have tracking of their resources and things like that. If we do that, then again, once you initially open the system on Windows and on mobile, you might need to have a connection just to check your credentials. Obviously, we'll try to avoid that if we can to allow the experience to be seamless. But on both platforms, regardless, once the system is operational, you don't need to have an internet connection. And especially mobile now, once you have the content downloaded, you don't need any connection at all. It's completely offline.
Okay, next question. Obviously, you've done a great job of blurring the distinction between virtual labs and remote labs. So is this a virtual lab or a remote lab apparatus that you're talking about?
Well, I've worked with remote labs for a long time, and this is it's interesting. So I put the title as remote labs because obviously there is a blur there in terms of something that virtual being representational of something remote. I think probably I would say that our ambition is to take the place of what would typically be a remote lab in terms of having the ability to create remote lab experiences without the need for remote lab infrastructure. But that being said, as I said earlier in response to one of the previous questions, we do firmly believe that no experience is the same as actually working with actual hardware. And I think we may get to the point where we start to address remote lab challenges in the future as well. But at the moment, we saw this as being a way to give a remote lab experience and highlight what you would typically highlight with remote access, but using a platform that was much more scalable and much more easily integrated into existing courses without the need for, as I said, infrastructure. That being said, if you do download and look at the Experience Controls textbook that I showcased, the Experience Controls textbook does have elements of what we call hardware experiences later on in the content, where you can connect to the same systems as we have now in the remote virtual lab, actually remotely at our office. They're operating now 24/7 at the office, and you can have that remote lab experience in the textbook. So we have done that, and that is available through the textbook in terms of being able to give students an actual remote access experience with the hardware, but in this case, because of scalability and because of accessibility, we saw virtual off-campus experiences being the one that would best fit the needs of our customers and partners.
This one is from Balu, who's doing some research on robotics in the medical field in India. Questions: I'm working on a research project, and if I use some of these virtual results, can they be trusted to be part of my research project, research publications?
I mean, that's a that's a very hairy question. I mean, like that's key for us because we always see our platforms, especially for research, as being a very like reliable, repeatable platform that does give you that credibility. Especially in structural health and those sorts of fields, our systems are typically the industry standard in terms of being a platform for validating your algorithms and research. With this particular experience, I think, like I said, this particular one is academically appropriate for the context, for the undergraduate teaching context. And so I would be a little uncomfortable with saying that it's accurate enough to be able to present. But that being said, any concept that is shown on these platforms is dynamically equivalent and dynamically relevant. So it would really depend on what the research is. And as I said, we'll be working hard to provide solutions to get closer to that line, hopefully later this year as well.
So just to echo what Peter was saying, I think it is a tough question, obviously, and a big part of our business is providing those open architecture research platforms to validate and to facilitate publications and both master's and PhD research. Having said that, we truly believe that this is not a replacement. This is a complement to hardware. And so as we start developing more of our research platforms within this framework, you can definitely do quite a bit of development, validation, iteration, rapid prototyping with working with the virtual system before even having the need to go to the hardware. At the end, we truly believe that it should be, especially on research, deployed on the real physical systems as well. But there's a ton of work that can be done as you develop that capacity on the models, and especially the high fidelity and the truly represented ones like you've seen in these experiences. So we truly believe that this technology is not a replacement; it's a complement. And it goes really hand in hand with that.
Next question from Francisco. Can you interact with these models using Simulink?
That's again a little bit of a sneak and a preview of what we're working on for later this year. At the moment, no. At the moment, the interactivity is through the control interface that we expose in terms of tuning parameters through the sliders and controls, and that we provide, and observing results through the scopes and data visualization that we provide. Again, as part of what we would want to provide for virtual hardware platforms, being able to interact with not just MATLAB Simulink through our Quark platform, but also with Python and other emerging scientific platforms would be something that we would see as a necessity for that kind of solution. But at the moment for this, again, because it's trying to address just the typical undergraduate lab experience in terms of observing, experiencing the hardware, taking measurements and doing analysis, and then building lab reports. It isn't at the moment targetable for MATLAB Simulink.
But yeah, again, just to add to that, a big part of our proposition and our solution historically has always been that MATLAB Simulink component, and so for sure that is something that is top of mind for us, and we want to work towards as we start releasing a lot more of our packages through this environment as well. Really, what we did right now was we wanted to give you the most accessible method and solution to meet the dire need right now to give these experiences remotely. The MATLAB Simulink environment, it's fantastic, but there is infrastructure required. And so we wanted to release solutions right now to give you the easy button, if you will, just to be able to point to a simple application, have the students download them and continue with their work as seamlessly as possible. But it's a great question and something we're working towards as well.
Question here from Harsh Thakkar from India. I teach a power electronics course to undergraduate students. How can I take my college lab, which has kits, into a virtual platform using whatever you've talked about?
So we have created products in the past to address power electronics. That being said, it's a little bit challenging, I believe, just in terms of the complexity of the instrumentation required and the variability of some of the integrated systems that are used. But that being said, all of the platforms that we use, whether it's the content platform that's built on QDex or now the virtual interactive labs platform that's based on what we call Quanser Sim, those platforms are open, and so they're meant as content creation platforms. At the moment, we use them internally primarily, but that isn't to say that if we were to partner with our partner with other academic representatives of different fields, we couldn't create solutions that would address those. But at the moment, because of what we do as our field of focus and what we know that we can create quickly, we focused on controls and robotics because that's something we know and understand, and we have existing examples and models and things like that to represent. So it's possible, and we could in the future create solutions with you to do that kind of thing. But at the moment, because again, we're trying to create
Paul
quickly.
Gilbert, to wind up, and closing statements from Peter and Paul and PK. Go ahead,
So my
Paul.
final statement would just be, as you can see on my screen, come to quanser.com/interactive-labs and sign up for instructor resources so that we can contact you when everything is available. And that's also where the downloads for Windows and eventually Mac OS will also be available.
Okay, Paul Gilbert.
Hello, am I speaking? So
Yes.
I'd like to thank everybody again for staying for the whole of this presentation. And I really want to reiterate what Paul and Peter have been saying, which is that this is our first step into providing virtual access to models. It is an undergraduate focus right now. We are planning on a lot more. We would love to get your feedback on the kinds of applications, the areas. Access to things like Simulink is really important. Having an open model, having interactive lectures, I think, is really interesting too. So please sign up on the website for more information, and we would love to be in touch with you and hear your feedback on what you saw today. Thanks very much and have a good day.
Anybody else? Paul? Anybody else? Okay. So yeah, that's it. Thank you everybody for joining us. There was a question about internships, and we'll be following up with the possibility of internships for students around the world with Quanser, but we'll send you more details. Okay. Thank you all, everybody, and have a good day. We have another session at in about 4 hours. So some of you might want to join, or others will join from different parts of the world. And good day, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.